Hi, everybody. I'm Marsha Egan, and welcome to Work at Home Strategies and Insights for the COVID-19ers. I'm really happy to be here with you today. I was actually amazed at how many people signed up for this webinar. A whole lot of you, many friends, many old friends. Some of you may know who I'm talking about. And I'm just very excited to be able to give back just a little bit. As many of you may know, I'm from Nantucket, and we have a real community there, and they put out an APB for face masks, and I don't sew, and I was racking my brain with how I could help during this crisis, and I realized that after working from home for, yes, it's been 15 years, my global headquarters of the Egan Group are in my home, and I love it there. And I have coached a lot of different people on many success strategies, and many of them deal with how to manage yourself and how to get through crises and all of that stuff. So that's why I'm here today. And we have a full hour planned. I'm excited because all of you are going to be able to ask questions by typing in your questions. And you are all going to be muted. And depending on how many questions we get, I may add them to my blog posts or that kind of thing. And I want to make sure that we're answering as many questions as we can. I have a little bit of a schedule set out, and we'll go through that in a minute. And as you have your questions, just type away. There's a little knob at the bottom of your screen that you can use to type in a question. When I was thinking about what we should talk about today, I think the important thing to say to all of you out there is that I want to focus on what is different about working at home rather than dealing with some of the same challenges you might have at home and at work. I've worked with a lot of people on time management, email productivity, and things like that. And some of that is different, but a lot of that can be the same. I'm going to be doing more webinars like this. And so if that's something you'd like to see more of, please just email me. I think my email was all over the information that was sent to you. So today is going to be focused on how you can maximize your time and your efforts and deal with the issues that come along with you being sequestered at home and still having to work. So without any further chatter, I am going to share my screen with you, and we're going to get to the PowerPoint that is ready to go, hopefully. Technology can be a challenge at a time. Look at that, we are on to the PowerPoint, woohoo! All right, so this was you, let's see, March 1st. Was this you, March 1st? Take a look at that nicely put together Lego person at his or her office. And you're organized, you have a routine, it's happy, or it's as good as it's gonna get. Well, then COVID-19 happened upon us, and this became you working at home. See that? Everything that you had organized got discombobulated. And so for those of you who know me, sometimes I make up words, so that's discombobulated. And we're going to try to recombobulate you all today in this short hour. So that's what happened to us. And human beings, whether you want to admit it or not, thrive on having routines. And when they have routines, they are more settled. And all of a sudden, all of the routines, not only for you, but for the people in your family and everyone else that you're working with, have been discombobulated. And what happens with that is it creates a lot of unknown. It creates a lot of stress on top of the potential loneliness that you're feeling, and just trying to figure it all out and make it work and stay as productive as you are can be a real challenge. So let me see, I'm gonna make this go forward one more. Here I come to save the day. And that's the last singing you're going to hear from me. This is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about routines. We're going to talk a little bit about where to work. We're going to talk about expectations, interruptions, distractions, and am I doing that horrible thing of reading a PowerPoint to you right now? Well, this is what we're talking about today. And at the end, we want to wrap up with career strategies, because this is an unprecedented time, and it's a time when you can really help your career. And we want to talk about those kinds of things, because it's not just surviving. Let's talk about thriving in this environment and what you need to do to thrive. So let's just talk about routines just for a second. I had a little fun putting some of this together. So we all have our morning routines. And when you're working from home, it's kind of like, well, what's my routine going to be? And many times when I'm working with my coaching clients and they have something new, what I say to them is, start the way you're going to finish. And what that means is, be intentional about your routines and be intentional about how you're going to be spending your time and organizing your work. Because if you're not, it will do it to you. It'll fill the space. And all of a sudden, instead of intending to start at work at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get in a routine with your family, and all of a sudden you're not working until 9:30, and oh, where did that half hour go? So the first thing about routines is, let's take hold and let's take charge of making the new routines. Now, some of you are working from home alone, and some of you are working with other people around. And so their routines are going to matter as well. So everyone in your household has been disrupted, even your pets. And they don't know what to do with it either. So we want to be proactive about establishing routines. And one of the things, the advice that I got when I first started working from home was, someone just said, you need to go to work. And that doesn't mean I need to work, but it's almost like step over the transom and you are working. And when you step back over the transom, you are at home. And so in your mind, it's a mindset that you go to work. And yeah, sorry, something else just went into my head. All right, so let's start with the morning routine. One of my biggest struggles personally was when I went to work, I put on a business suit and I had a whole routine. I had to be out of the house by 7:30 in the morning, and I timed the whole thing, and I had a get ready for work routine. And that's not such a bad thing to do, because if you kind of lounge around and you're there in your pajamas and you say, oh, I better go get something done. Well, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I challenge you to think about, what is it you need to do to go to work? My husband and I both started to work in the same office. It was a spacious office, but we figured out that didn't work at all. And I found another place to go. And it was kind of like a switch flipped when I did that. And so I want to challenge you to think about what you might need to do to go to work. The next thing is, it can be really useful for you to establish your own start and end times. That happens at your place of work, and that can be healthy for you. I'm not advocating that you act like so regimented, because some of the good stuff about working from home is you do have some flexibility, and we want to maximize that as well. So depending on when your workplace is at work and when you want to go to work, it's when I first started working, I said I was going to be at my desk at 8:15 no matter what. And that was actually the time I had previously started work. And if the dishes weren't done, or if I didn't get to put something in the wash that I wanted to and had to run out the door at 7:30, that's the way I approached it. And so if you say to yourself, I must be at my desk at whatever time, and the dishes aren't done, or you see, oh my gosh, I need to remember to do this. And sometimes being at home gives you the false impression that you shouldn't be adhering to some of your routines. So this is what we're talking about with routines. Go to work and quit work. And I'm going to talk about some other things later, but you may have some flexibility in that. And that can be really, really useful. So I guess the other thing that I would say about that is when you were at work, a lot of times people took the lunch hour at a certain time as well. And if that worked for you, if taking an hour off in the middle of the day fueled you and was useful for you, that might be something you might want to incorporate into what your daily routine is going to look like. And for those of you who have others in the household, understanding what their routines need to be or are can be very, very useful. So that's number one. Now let's just talk about where to work. And I hope this doesn't look like anybody's house right now, but maybe it does. Where to work is another challenge. And I think many of you may have started by working at the kitchen table or sitting in bed with your laptop on your lap, or who knows where. It's in the same vein as what we just talked about with going to work. If you have an established place, that can be very useful. And some of the people on the line I know have had a lot of experience working from home, and I don't want this to seem too basic, but it is important that you establish a place that is yours to the degree that you can. And whatever that is, then that becomes your place to go to work, as we just said, as private as possible. And the other thing that can be really useful is get it organized so that you have, even if you don't have file cabinets or things like that, you can use boxes to store whatever you need to have at your fingertips. And that kind of thing can be very more settling, and it helps you get things done faster. So where to work is another challenge for you. And for those who have other people in their homes, establish their places to work too. So where to work is pretty important as well. And the intentionality about all this can be really, really useful. All right, let's go to the next subject, which is expectations. And what do we talk about this? Well, managing expectations of yours and of others can be really useful in coming to your new normal. And that is, everything got kind of discombobulated when you first had to work at home. You're starting to come up with answers now. And this is where managing your expectations about how you're going to work and what it's going to be like can be really useful for you. So this is, as an example, setting a daily plan. Now you know what time you're going to start work. How are you going to structure your day? You really aren't going to be going out of the house other than for some exercise or a walk or that kind of thing. You're not going to be going to meetings. You're not going to be going to work. You're not going to be meeting with other people. But there are things that will work for you in terms of how you structure your day. Nobody can work 8 hours straight. They need breaks and they need lunch, and your dog needs to go out. And so when you, in your own mind, have managed your own expectations about how you're going to work, that's great. Now, you've established a daily plan. Let's let other people know what that is so that they, and learn what their expectations are so that you're all in sync. I have heard a lot of stories about these household units of 4 and 5 people who are really struggling, and my heart goes out to them. And you know, it's worst at its first, and as things settle out, it gets better. But the way you get through this is by communicating your expectations with other people. And because I have my global headquarters in my home, there are times when my husband also works at home. And when we're working on big projects, I'll basically say, I need 2 hours of uninterrupted work. And he'll do the same with me. I'm not saying it always works really great, but every now and then it does work. Especially the more important it is, the better. I was on a call last week with someone who actually, this was before the quarantine, but she was working from home at that time. Actually, it was during the quarantine, I'm sorry. She had her husband take her son out for a little drive while she was on an important call. There are things that you can do to work with each other on things like this, but understanding your own needs and plans and routines, and then sharing them with others is how to manage expectations. And it just settles everything down. It requires talking. It requires talking. So you need to talk with each other about what's going to work for you. So I'd like to just challenge you to kind of put that on the table and just kind of brainstorm with each other as to how you can best fill each other's needs. I just got an email from someone who wanted to be on the line today, but her son had to be on an online learning. Now, luckily, this recording is going to be in the cloud forever, and she was real happy to hear that it's available. So sometimes there are conflicting things that have to be worked out as well. Okay, let's go to the next one, the big one, interruptions. Do you get interrupted? Yeah, there are lots of things. Now, and I define an interruption as something that something or someone else does to you. In other words, a telephone call is an interruption. The dog coming up with their toy to play is an interruption. Your son having yogurt all over his face is an interruption. And your grandmother wanting to call and share a video with you is an interruption. So anything that is external to you that interrupts you, this is what we're talking about right now. So I do a lot of productivity work with my clients and with my coaching clients. And this is kind of a commonly accepted thing, and that is it takes the average person an average of 4 minutes to recover from any interruption. All right. So that doesn't even involve handling the interruption. It's just, I was interrupted. I was writing a great blog post. Someone came by and interrupted me for something. Now I can't pick up immediately where I was. So 4 minutes to recover from any interruption. If you are interrupted only 15 times in a day, 4 minutes times 15 times, you have lost 1 hour, 60 minutes of productivity. So interruptions are very, very costly. And I think you all know the pain of having to deal with interruptions. And I'm not saying that you can eliminate them, but you can do some things that will minimize your interruptions. As we just talked about, managing people's expectations can be very useful. And this is why we want to take advantage of our situation at home to minimize those interruptions. And I want to challenge you to think about what's interrupting you, because everybody's different, but what's interrupting you and how can you minimize those interruptions? I worked with a gal at one point who worked from home. She had kids at home and they were being homeschooled. She had an office door and she had 3 things made up to hang on her door. One was yellow, one was green, and one was red. And if she had the green hanger on the door, it meant the kids could interrupt her anytime. If it was yellow, it meant interrupt me if it's important, and please knock. And the red was, she was joking, but she said, come in only if you're bleeding. So the red meant do not come in. Anyway, there are some systems or things like that that you might be able to employ to minimize the interruptions in your life. One of them, and I think the biggest interrupter of the universe now is email and text dinging and flashing. And when you're working, you're working. And that means turn off the dings and the flashes so that you can work. The interruptions are what can really take you off track. And the other thing that happens is when people think you're at home, they think you're not working. So they do call during the day when they might not call you at work because they know you're working. And so if you start getting calls like that, sometimes in a very nice way, you can say, hey, I'd love to talk to you after my working hours, after 5 o'clock. And it is interesting because I've known a lot of people who, when they first started their home businesses, they would have friends come over for coffee, uninvited, and they would call to chat because they knew you were home. And so sometimes we need to take it on with other people to say, hey, you know, I'm still taking a paycheck here. I need to work and I want to work, and this is how I'm going to work. So turn off all the interrupters, the dings and the flashes. And I am guessing that email is flourishing even more than it used to because people are at home. And there's, I like to challenge people. I do a whole workshop on how to manage your email. But if you can minimize your Outlook or minimize your email while you're working on something important, at least for that half hour, you'll get more work done than if you hear a ding or a flash and you're looking for some newfound treasure to come grace your inbox and find out that it was just spam anyway. So I do think when I was thinking about this workshop, the average person takes 4 minutes to recover from an interruption. And I would fear, and it's not documented, that it might actually take longer when you're in a home environment, because if you're interrupted, you could be saying, oh, gee, I think I heard the dryer just go off. I'm gonna fold the wash. Or, oh, gee, I hear a funny sound outside. I'm gonna go check to see what the gas guy is doing. And I'm not saying if there's an emergency that you don't pay attention to it. All I'm saying is that it's healthy for you to be cognizant of what's interrupting you, to try and shrink it. We will never get rid of all of our interruptions, but we can shrink them down. So the fewer interruptions you have during the workday, the better. So very close to interruptions, let's go to the next one, is distractions. Okay, I define a distraction as something that you did to yourself. So when you're working, you might say, oh, gee, I think I want to check my Facebook page, or maybe I'm going to take a quick break and do the laundry, or, oh, my dog just got skunked. Well, that's an interruption. That's not a distraction. Sorry. But the distraction could be, oh, I want to go play with my dog. Now, I am not saying that you shouldn't be taking breaks. I'm just saying beware of what is distracting you. And the most important one is the social media piece, because the information is abounding right now about the virus and about everything. People are trying to connect, and so there is a lot going on all of the social media applications, and we can be drawn off. I think everybody here, including myself, you think, I'm just going to check that one thing, and 20 minutes later, you're still not working on what is more important than that. So I want to challenge you to do that. And so as we talk about this, what are you doing that's distracting yourself from your daily plan? And once again, I want to talk about that plan a little bit more in a few minutes, but it's the I'm at work mindset that can be very useful. We talked about going to work. Now, I'm at work. When I'm at work, I'm not on Facebook. Okay, when I'm at work, I'm not doing laundry. And I'm not telling you what to do here. I'm just saying, consider some of these options, because while you are getting a paycheck for working at home, your employer is hoping that you maintain that same amount of productivity and effectiveness. And so, taking that on and saying, I'm working now, and getting into the mindset of, I need to give my employer 8 hours a day. That's when I'm there, I give 8 hours. Today, I'm going to give 8 hours. And what's that going to look like? So that's, and I think that is part of the flexibility that can be very, very useful to you in finding the silver lining from working at home. Because right after I started working at home, I took my dog for a 45-minute walk at lunch because I could. I couldn't do that when I was at work. I was 20 minutes away from the house. There was no way I could take a 45-minute walk with my dog. So there are definitely silver linings here that I want to challenge you to take advantage of. And so instead of a distraction, something intentional that's useful to you. And I'm not saying you shouldn't look at social media, but start an end time. I'm going to do 10 minutes on Facebook this morning just to make sure I'm, keeping up with my family and that kind of thing. So distractions can be toxic to you, because if you get in the habit of distracting yourself, you will most likely be distracting yourself as part of your routine. So let's remember, let's start the way we want to finish. Okay, the next thing I wanted to chat with you about a little bit is energy. And this is, managing your energy when you work from home can also be a challenge. I think when you go to work physically, you get into a work mindset where your energy pattern has already been established. Well, now you're in your home environment and it could be different. But the really cool thing about this is when you're in your home environment, you have the option of using your energy levels to do your best work. Because if you can decide how to spend your time. I would imagine a lot of you are on a lot of different conference calls, Zoom calls, things like that. But to the degree that you are planning your day and managing your time, there is this thing called a circadian rhythm. And I'm sure a bunch of you out there know what that is. But what it basically says is everybody has rhythms to their day: high energy, low energy, medium low energy, high energy. And with energy comes creativity. And what we want to think about is maximizing our energy levels for the time we need to be most productive and most effective. And for those of you who think you have a high energy level all day long, that's a bunch of hooey. Or some of you may say you have low energy all the day long. That's a bunch of hooey. I can't hear anybody laughing, but I'm laughing at my own jokes. So just go with it, okay? Anyway, so your energy levels go like this, and everybody has them, and they are rather similar just about every day. This is not something that varies significantly. And personally, my low energy level is probably between 2:30 and 4 o'clock in the day. It always has been. My nickname in college was the napper. Anyway, so I knew when my low energy trough was, and I also knew when my high energy trough was. For those of you who know me, I think you do know that I'm a morning person, and I can get more done between 7 and 9 in the morning than probably the whole day. And so for you to knowing, if there's a coaching mantra that is know thyself, and the more you know yourself, the better you can manage yourself. So if you know what your energy cycles are, and you can maximize them, and also recognize when your low energy points are, you can make them work for you. On my website, I have a form that I have used in my time management workshops, and it's tracking your energy level. It's kind of a time log and energy log. That's free to you, and there will be a follow-up email to every one of you. And I will also include this link, but it's at my website, marshaegan.com/energy. And if you track 3 days of your energy, you will, if you didn't know what your circadian rhythm was, you'll know. Pick pretty normal days, and you'll see that, let's say, you hear people saying that they're a night person or a night owl or a morning person, or they know. And for you to know, that's important, because that's when you can design, for example, when you start work, and or when you do the more mundane things, you do them at your low energy level, if you have the ability to design your own day. So that's kind of the daily plan kind of thing. So the other thing about energy level, and I alluded to it before, is you need to take breaks. You need to take breaks, because one thing that can happen to the person working from home is, you know, they don't leave home to go to work. They don't leave work to go home physically. And many people who are working from home just work straight through, and they work longer hours. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. But for you to be at the top of your game, breaks are important. And that's why I have a dog. But when you take a break, it needs to be a real break. It means to be, you know, take my brain off of it rather than just walk around the house twice. So you want to take a break where your mind is taken off. You want to get rid of the brain clutter. And if you can combine it with physical exercise, that can be very useful as well. But by maximizing our circadian rhythms and taking the needed breaks, and sometimes defined breaks, it's like, I'm gonna set my alarm for 15 minutes and then I'm gonna get back to work. And then I can do the stuff around the house that I wanted to do. So energy level is very important. And in that same regard, sleep patterns are also important. And so the more regularly you go to sleep and get up at the same time each day, the more your circadian rhythms will be consistent from day to day. So sleep, breaks, and knowing when you are highly energetic, which also means highly creative, that's going to be useful to you. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. And now we're talking about communicating. All right. Human connections are important. And without going to the office, I think a lot of people mourn the lack of human interaction. And they're discovering things like Zoom. For those of you who've never used this before, there's a free version that you can use for up to 40 minutes. And it's very, very easy to use. And there are all kinds of ways to communicate and to interact with other human beings. We are wired that way. We are wired to be social people, at least most of us. So the video calls that we have at work can serve their purposes. And because we don't have the human interaction, I like to suggest that there are going to be some times when instead of an email, a phone call might be more useful. It may be more effective anyway, but the human connection is needed. And so sometimes there are a lot of people out there who default to email on everything. And during this time of crisis, I would recommend either Zooming somebody, FaceTiming somebody, or video chatting or calling every now and then. Caution, caution, danger, danger. And that is, don't stay on the line for 2 hours, but sometimes it's nice to say, hey, how are the kids? How's your family doing? Rather than just answering a business email. And for those of you out there who are fearing that I'm telling people to not be as productive, this is something that helps your productivity. And I mean, anything to excess is a problem, but the human connection, especially right now, can be very useful. Now, let's talk a little bit more about, let's just say your company does a lot of video chatting or Zooming. And now we're getting into a little bit of the career stuff. And that is prepare for the call physically. And what I would like to suggest there is, you know, hair, makeup, you know, the right clothes, at least, you know, from the waist up. But in times like these, careers can be made or broken by how you behave, how you look, how you present yourself. I used to always say to my clients, how they behave in a meeting with their boss can be a career boost or a career limiter. And you're having a lot of these meetings online. And I hate to tell you this, but this could become the new normal because people are no longer afraid of it and they're learning to use it. There's some people who've used it very well over time, but there are other businesses where this is kind of new. And for those of you who haven't done a lot of it, I very strongly suggest that you prepare physically for the call first. And that means dressing for the call. I'm not saying put on a coat and tie or anything like that for you guys, but you don't want to be in your workout clothes necessarily, unless it's an emergency, for your meeting with your boss online. And then let's prepare mentally, and that is when you're on the call, be very focused, be on the call, and just like you were going to a meeting at work, be prepared for the call, and use the call wisely. As you know, when you're asked for your feedback, be articulate and behave just as you would in a meeting at work. So high energy is important. Bosses like to see that. And so, you know, instead of, you know, laying back here and, you know, they can see you doing the Blackberry prayer, you know, here. You don't want to do that. Engagement and the appearance that you're presenting is very, very important. Then the next thing is arrive early. Don't be the person who's coming into the meeting late. If you know it's starting at 1 o'clock, get on the call 5 minutes early. And I mean, you can do other work while you're waiting, but arriving early to any meeting anywhere is an important career strategy. And the other thing that you do want to do is try to minimize the noise as much as possible. It's kind of hard in home environments and that kind of thing, and people understand, but it might be useful for you to invest in a noise canceling headset if you do have a lot of background noise. That can be very useful. And just keeping your communications kind of intentional and using them wisely, and recognizing that the human connection now more than ever is really important. And it's important that you support other people too, and you help build them up. So I don't know if any of you have any questions about all that. And if we have time at the end, I'll start answering your questions. I see if you have come in. So let's go to the next subject, and that is, I call it self-management. And we've talked about that already a little bit, but whoa, that is the wrong one. Oh, I forgot something. That was the right one. This is speaking of communicating. This is where I get a chance to tell you a little bit about, and this is 30 seconds worth of the upcoming, my plans, because I am wanting to do more and more and more online and more virtual things and more webinars. And I am going to be doing at least one monthly webinar. And if you have ideas for things you'd like to see, I would love for you to email them to me. I'm going to be launching something called Marsha's Inner Circle. I was planning it for May, but it might now go to June, just because of everything else that's around us. But that's going to contain a number of webinars and a lot of resources for you. And I just wanted to let you know that that's happening. One way to be informed of that is I have a quarterly newsletter. I don't slam your inboxes with lots of newsletters, but it's called Success Boosters. I had a brain drain right there. And you can find it on my website, and I will be notifying all of the people who are on my newsletter about that. And oh, by the way, I want to thank all of you who are on my newsletter for signing up today. We have over 180 people on the line right now, and that's pretty awesome. Okay. The other thing is I do individual coaching with people. I do it mostly by telephone. I don't know why people don't want me to see their pretty face, but once I get to know them, we talk by phone, and that works pretty well for me too. So anyway, let's move on to the next. Self-management. This is, I've already talked a little bit about this, but this is where we're getting into the whole career thing. And instead of feeling victimized by you being stuck at home, this offers a lot of opportunities for you. And for you to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, I like to call it self-management, self-ownership, where you are taking this on yourself and finding the lemonade that's happened because of the lemons. And part of that has to do with how well you do your job while you're at home. And part of that is planning your day. Part of that is you're going to be going back to the work. So how you survive this, and how you have a positive attitude about things, and how you manage your work is all going to be part of, your trajectory after this is over. And it's going to be over. And, we're just looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. And I know it's been very rough on a lot of you. And I got something the other day that said Anne Frank spent, I think it was 600 plus days in captivity. Don't quote me on that. And with the same 7 people for those many, many, many days. And she was able to keep a positive attitude about it. So I hope that we can too. And instead of stirring the pot, what we want to do is make a really, really great bowl of vegetable soup. So, okay, so planning your day is part of it. The other thing is managing your time and your priorities well. Now, this is something that people need to do anyway, whether you're at work or whether you are quarantined. But the way you get your work done and the effort that you are obviously putting into your work and the results that you're getting will be part of your success as we come out of this. And so that does mean working the number of hours you intend to work, managing those distractions, and just making time for what's important and finding the right priorities. And I said I wasn't going to talk that much about things that aren't different between work and home. And that's the same, but managing your priorities for work become critical, and your ability to manage yourself is a key to it, because you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder. You don't have people walking by to see whether you're on your cell phone or not. This is where you can prove to your employer that you can work from home. And there are definite advantages to it. And whether you prove to your employer that you do a great job at it or not, and you get to work at home 2 days a week out of 5. Think about something like that. So, but I just want to challenge you to take it on yourself and to be intentional. That's one of the coaching themes that I work with my clients is intentionality. Be intentional about how you're spending your time and then make it work for you. So let's go to the next one, career strategies. And we've been talking about that, but I just like to challenge you all to give your employer your all. You know, they're going through a lot. They are most likely struggling because of the financial situations that abound, and just give them one less thing to worry about. And I like to say, if you can view every single interaction that you have within your company as a career builder, that can help you become more successful and be part of the solution rather than the problem. And I guess if you look at the two little people on the right graphic there, helping others has always been a great career strategy. Now I believe it's even more important. And so I want to suggest that you work with others, uplift them, don't pull them down, avoid the negative Nellyisms, show leadership in this time. And you know, that means checking in. That means checking in with your boss. That means checking in with your coworkers, and checking in and helping, you know, lift them up as well. And that's what I like to challenge you all with. And one of the words that I like to think about as far as this is concerned is focus. Your ability to focus during this time, your ability to manage yourself and to do good work can be very, very helpful to your careers. So with that, I want to, I'm going to, in 1 minute, I'm going to check out the questions and see if there's some that I can answer for you up until our witching hour of 2 o'clock. And I want to wish you all the luck in the world. I'm sorry for what has happened, but let's make some lemonade out of these lemons. And if I can help you in any way, I have so many free resources on my website. Please don't hesitate. So I'm going to go to the questions right now. And okay. Yep, Sandy, it's nice to be here with you too. Okay. I'm going to read this question. Do you think that colleagues and clients should be more understanding when you're required to work from home with kids homeschooling, spouse or roommates around, and pets in the background? Does this bring a new sense of authenticity during the pandemic? Should we try to maintain the same level of professionalism as at the office? Well, I think I answered most of that. And I don't know if you folks can see the screen or not, but sure, people need to understand that this is different. And I mean, I've had situations where my dog has, you know, come up on my lap and shown her head while I'm on a conference call, and yeah, it's actually kind of endearing. It's just, I think managing all those expectations can be the best way to do that. Let's see. Here's another one from Beth. On a positive note, the interruptions of robocalls have stopped. Has anyone else noticed the reduction of robocalls to their cell phones? I can't help you, but I have not gotten any. So there's one person giving you an answer, Beth. Okay. Okay, Kristen, we're enjoying your little jokes, Marsha. Thanks for helping us keep our spirits up. Oh man, well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay. Oh, okay. From Mike, I suppose it's the meeting host's responsibility for controlling this. It seems like on many Zoom or FaceTime sessions, the first 10 minutes or so are spent on unnecessary chit chat. Okay, Mike, you have just hit one of my buttons here. When I do coaching calls or coach trainings, I make sure I start no later than 3 minutes after the hour. And I start. And I actually wrote a book called Making Good Meetings Great. And the book basically says, when the meeting's supposed to start the meeting. And if you wait 10 minutes for the stragglers to come in, you have just rewarded the wrong behavior. So, Mike, you just hit my hot button. And what I would, to the degree that you have any control over this, those meetings should start on time. And if people straggle in, don't catch them up. I mean, unless it's really critical. Because a lot of these meetings are not going to be the only meeting you have. So if the meeting leader starts that meeting on time, and they don't catch up the person who's late, and a lot of times with these meetings, people see who's coming in late, which is not healthy for your career, as we just talked about, right? That would be great. And now, if you chit chat is important, but chit chat as part of the meeting is not. I mean, if you really want to, you can say, join the meeting 5 minutes early to connect with your other people, and we'll start at exactly 2 o'clock. We used to do that with networking meetings, where we would say, our meeting is going to be at 5 o'clock, but if you want to socialize, come at 4:30. Something like that. I'd be interested to see if you have any other thoughts on that. And let's see. Okay, what is the best way to network virtually during this time? Well, it's not as easy as going to a chamber mixer, I'll tell you that. I have always said that this is my networking workshop, but networking is really helping. So the best way to network, in my view, it's, and I think it can work virtually, is to help others. In other words, if you're on a call and someone says, my refrigerator just broke, and you happen to know the best refrigerator guy in town, and after the call, you send them a note saying, here's the best refrigerator guy I know. People remember things like that. So positive networking is helping. So I would suggest you try that. Okay, and oh boy. And this is from my friend Rosemary. What strategy have you found to be most useful for you to stay focused? Well, that is a challenge, and what I like to do is set deadlines for myself. And sometimes I set deadlines using other people. In other words, if I need to get something done, I might say, Rosemary, I'll get this report to you by 2 o'clock tomorrow. So that way, even though Rosemary did not set a deadline for me, I set it for myself. So that helps me stay focused. My best way of focusing is to turn away from the computer. And coaches are really into goal setting, and the way to focus is to set your sight on the goal. And if the goal is, I'm going to finish writing this article you know, set yourself a goal of finish writing the article by 2 o'clock or before you go to lunch, or something like that. And that is one of the ways that I am able to focus, because there's a, you know, there's a lot going on here. And I do like to say to myself, what's the most important thing I should be working on right now? And then that's what I try to work on. With the caveat, I'm going into my time management workshop here, with the caveat that if it's your low energy time, don't do that. If it's the most important thing that you can be working on and your energy level is correct and you have the right amount of time, then you can do that. So let me see if we have had any more questions since I started answering these questions. Oh, yeah, I have people from my mastermind group on here who are giving me some nice kudos. Thank you, David. And here's another suggestion, and that is from Jan, who says, I have to remember to clear off my desktop. Otherwise, all my lists and other projects keep coming up. So decluttering is energizing. So that's another tip for you. Okay. And here's someone who liked the session, but sadly had to leave for another Zoom call. Okay. Well, it's 2 o'clock. I promised that I would keep this to an hour, and I am going to keep to that. And I want to wish you all the health and wellness and career success that's possible. And please stay safe and stay positive.